You're listening to Heroes in the Moment. What's up, heroes? I'm Michael.
And I'm Nathan.
And today, Thunderbolts.
Man, I'm excited to talk about this one, man.
Hugely excited to talk about Thunderbolts. I mean, just came out. I was going to say this is our first movie review of the year. We had Captain America Brave New World back in February.
We're not counting
This was a big step up.
You don't say.
From Captain America Brave New World, Thunderbolts. Initial thoughts. Well, right off the bat, we just have to talk. I feel like it's prevalent in the beginning. Spoilers ahead, straight off.
Yeah,
don't want to spoil anything, even though Marvel themselves spoiled it.
Oh my gosh.
But Thunderbolts, or should we say, the new Avengers?
I hate that they revealed it.
Why would
early.
they reveal that?
4 days after? Yeah,
after release. Why would they?
4 days.
Why would they do that? What do you think is the move behind that?
Honestly, man, I don't. This doesn't strike me as desperation or we only made this amount of money over the weekend. We have to boost it. I think this was obviously the plan the whole time. Hence the asterisk.
Sure, correct.
I really think they just could have played it off as the Thunderbolts or the New Avengers the entire time, or just not done it at all. Like obviously in the end credits, spoilers alert, but they changed it to the
right.
Like people are gonna go see it regardless and know that, And I'd already seen stuff about it on Twitter, so I'm glad we went opening night because, dude, that night I was scrolling, I'm seeing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
see, I'm glad because I knew nothing, and seeing that at the end was really shocking and surprising to me as a fan. I did not think that they were going to go in that direction, and that they did. They called it the New Avengers, and which I was very surprised, but I'm even more surprised by their move of 4 days later being like, hey,
I know.
This is
I could have seen, like we were saying earlier, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks, maybe a month,
maybe not even at all.
But like honestly. I said, I'm not sure how much this move will help them out. I think it'll make people a little more mad than
I agree.
Probably what percentage of the population gets to see it in the first 4 days? Probably less than half.
Right.
Most people watch it in the next few weeks.
Right.
A couple months down the road. Some people wait till it hits the
a lot of people like to wait, especially with Marvel, how it's been the last couple of years. Is they wait till after the open weekend, wait till they hear some stuff about it. Is it worth my time to go see it?
Exactly.
Is it not?
Yeah.
And this is one of those movies that that people are buzzing about. You
exactly.
already hear the
it's
first
got
reactions,
great reviews.
Getting great reviews. It's gonna pull some people in to go see it in the theaters. Why drop this and make this move now, especially 4 days after opening weekend?
I don't understand. Like you said, it is a huge hype factor, and it's a big reveal. It's a big shock.
Huge reveal, yeah.
But I just feel like it's way too soon. It's like you're watching Superman, and it's like 4 days later, oh, this character actually survives. It's like
right.
It's such a spoiler, dude. And like I said, speaking of spoilers, there's other stuff that kind of handled poorly, with a certain character in mind.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I just. It's not a knock against the movie or anything. But
no, not at all. It's not the movie
from
itself.
the executive side. It's just kind of a weird decision.
It's really again. It's that same kind of thing that I feel like the marketing of this movie was particularly really good.
Yeah.
That Marvel movie has not been Deadpool and Wolverine was really well marketed, but this movie was really well marketed.
Yeah.
And now that you're going to now we're changing the title 4 days afterwards, and then all the other stuff, like the Avengers Doomsday cast, that's already took away some stakes from your movies, already took away from the movie. And
you already know exactly who's going to be in it.
Exactly. And then now you're doing this with the title. It's just, again, it almost feels like Marvel didn't have confidence in Thunderbolts.
I know.
Does that make sense?
Which is weird, yeah. And I read that this was the first Marvel movie since their complete creative overhaul, and Kevin Feige was involved, and they brought in a ton of really good, writers
and clearly evident
on this project,
right?
Yeah, like you said, I was telling Michael earlier, guys, but this feels like the most unique project since Eternals. Yeah, you can just see the influence,
and this was better than
it by
Eternals,
its director.
Yeah.
So
that it's really just it's unique, and like you said, it's their first really movie before that they took their time with and it was shown. But these moves that they're making don't feel strategic, rather that they didn't have faith in this movie.
Exactly.
Which is have faith in your movies before making these decisions.
Exactly. Because like I said, and like you said, man, they're making a lot of money. It's getting amazing reviews.
Yeah.
When I open my social media, obviously it's my algorithm, but it's just Thunderbolts stuff right now.
It's really it's trending.
People thirsting over Bucky
absolutely.
Usual. So.
Absolutely loving these characters.
Yeah.
And I mean, you should have given it time, give it its time to wait before going and said, hey, they're the new Avengers. It's really weird. So I don't know how I feel, and we'll see as the coming weeks come on with Marvel marketing as starts to ramp up for Fantastic Four really soon.
Yeah,
what they'll do, what their plan is, because again, and we'll talk about this more specifically when we get to end credit scenes. I think this movie would have functioned better, especially now with that title reveal to have come out after Fantastic Four and have Fantastic Four come out first. But again, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into specifics. But let's start as always, with our movie reviews. We start with the characters, we go to our pros, we go to our cons, talk about the end credits in depth, then we rate it out of 10. So let's start with our characters, starting with the bright and shining star of this movie, Yelena Belova, Florence Pugh.
Yeah, man, she's awesome in this movie. It kind of blows my mind that she's A-list. She's worked with Nolan on Oppenheimer, these huge projects.
Yeah,
and she's still coming back to Marvel and doing this stuff. It shows that she has a deep love for this character, for this universe,
absolutely.
and she brought an absolutely stellar A+ performance.
Right, and
movie.
Marvel. This is another example of a Marvel making an actress because, she was in Midsummer right before she was in. So she was already pretty,
and she was in Little Women in 2019.
Little Women, yeah. So she was before Black Widow. She was already pretty established in Hollywood. So this, really brought her up, and now she's been in Dune. She's going to be in Dune Messiah. She's going to be. She's massive, right? Yeah. And naturally, this is also the first character that we've seen that get a movie of her own like that. This has become a side character to get her own movie.
Yeah,
and well deserved. And
very well deserved. Yeah,
carried this movie really well as the lead, like really well, because the whole movie was completely from her perspective. It was completely, and I've seen many people considering this Black Widow 2 only if Black Widow was good.
Yeah,
looking at it as Black Widow 2, and it makes me really happy that Yelena it's not like in other instances where you see, they're trying to replace this character, they're trying to replace this with that. I don't feel like Yelena's character is replacing Natasha. She feels like a new entity, but a welcome one. She's very awesome. She's a great character. She's a great Black Widow, a great person to be in that kind of position where Scarlett Johansson's Natasha Romanoff was.
Yeah. And
she was a great lead to this movie. She had a lot of heart. She's hilarious, and she's sarcastic, which is such a good part. And as Florence Pugh adds that really, really well in that accent she does.
It's crazy.
Yeah, she does a really
British person doing a Russian accent.
Russian accent, doing it really well, and she was a great lead. And I loved Yelena ever since we seen Black Widow, and then in Hawkeye, it's a great character, but here even more so. She's just awesome.
Yeah, in recent memory, there's not too many characters that have been written better than her. She's had an awesome character development.
Awesome story.
And seeing them dive deeper, now into, her loneliness, her depression.
Yeah.
We get to see kind of an existential crisis in here where she's realized, what's the point of everything? What am I doing? So I thought the film did a really good job exploring that, through her lens.
Agreed.
Just like everything you said, dude, she's phenomenal in this movie. It kind of saddens me. I see some fans kind of like comparing her and Natasha Romanoff.
Again, it feels like you can't.
Which I hate, because at the time, unfortunately, back in 2008, 9, whatever it was with Iron Man 2 when that came out, when Black Widow was introduced, she was kind of more of a, for the sex appeal, right? Based on her attractiveness. And eventually, she started to get some good character development. So essentially, she walked so Yelena could run.
Exactly.
They've killed it with her character, man. They established her early as a very serious person dealing with a lot of stuff. And man, this movie was just like the icing on the cake.
It was such a great deep dive into mental health. Yeah. And as and I'm no professional or anything like that, but when it comes to mental health, I feel like they did a really great job showing it and displaying it in her.
Really.
Because, she, in one case, when she's on business, she's focused, right? She's going to execute everything, but yet she has that pull, like something is weighing on her deeply.
Yeah.
And, she goes home, she's alone, she goes to the bottle, or she does this, and she's lost everything she loves. And then her past when it comes to the Red Room was so traumatic, and that whole experience really shown really well, especially in the void sequences that we see later. They just do such a great job diving into that mental health aspect, where her character development in this movie was really well done and executed. That we see her come into light as she comes in as this really let's put her emotions down, let's bury them, let's not worry about them, to we need to release these emotions, right?
Yeah.
You can't bottle them up, which was really awesome.
That is beautiful. And the writers did a great job with that.
Great job. Yelena was definitely, I don't know if I want to say my favorite character in this movie, but definitely top.
She killed it as the lead.
She did amazing.
For sure.
All right, so now let's talk about the most experienced, I should say, person in this movie, being Sebastian Stan, Bucky. I'll let you take the lead on this.
This guy is so attractive, dude. he just serves in everything he's in, man.
Massive aura.
You're massive, dude. I kept on leaning over to Michael, be like, dude, that's massive aura.
Yeah.
Even when he's a congressman, which I still don't know why they decided to do that plot, because he's Congress in the first part of the movie, and then he just goes rogue.
He just quits.
Yeah, and just does Thunderbolts stuff
Which
for the
is
next
his character,
part. Yeah,
you
which
know?
is his character. One thing that's so underrated, man, about Sebastian Stan is his comedic timing, dude. He's hilarious in this movie.
He doesn't even try to be.
He doesn't try to be.
He's such a serious
He pulls
character,
it off
but-
very naturally.
Right.
I think they do a good job, kind of showcasing him as one of the leaders of this team, especially in the end where everyone's going through their individual traumas, like Bucky, we've seen him go through that during 2 movies and his own show. So watching him kind of handle everything from that point of view was really cool.
It was really cool.
Every scene he was in, dude, like he absolutely killed.
I know, there wasn't enough.
I know, like the Winter Soldier scene where he took out the vehicles
That
and
was
stuff,
awesome.
and like
That was awesome.
I know it's a team up movie, but getting to see just solo stuff like that again from one of my, if not my favorite character, man, it just makes me really happy.
Yeah, and I honestly, I feel like that the shouldn't say Captain America, Falcon in the Winter Soldier show did not capture him
exactly
as great as this did.
I know,
because they did such a good job of showing him in the real world now, still weighing with the difficulties of his past and all this stuff. It just, they did a really good job showing him, and he's still working with that Winter Soldier, even though he's Bucky now. He's full Bucky. He's full good. It's still really cool. He's still dealing with that, and he's on this team of others that have struggled with similar things in their past. Was really, really a cool experience. I just wish there was more of him.
I know.
That was my problem. He was not in this movie a whole
He
ton.
wasn't, bro. And like, he's been there since phase 1. And
Yeah.
when it comes to like Marvel superstardom, like he's like dang near the top, at least compared to these other like newbies. So.
Right.
But no, like with what he had, man, I was really happy. Even when he was just like doing Congress people stuff, it was really cool.
Yeah.
It was just cool to see, even when he wasn't, actively, wearing his armor and stuff.
Right.
Like he was still trying to help, still trying to stop Valentina, and still trying to stop these, human procedures that he himself went through 100 years ago.
Right. He's stopping
he
all
still
of
had
this
a heart
stuff.
for it.
He's saying that this is not right. No super soldier, especially super soldier that we'll see. It's definitely even more light than a soldier. So it was just really cool. And like I say, he's the most experienced, and he's one of 2 characters in this movie that are prior to the multiverse saga, which is interesting as well. All these other characters were introduced in the multiverse saga. So that was cool, to have him as that grounded character too, and kind of bringing them back down to earth from time to time when it comes to the other characters. And just really cool, pulling his arm out of the dishwasher. That was funny.
That was really funny.
That
and
was
one
so
scene,
funny.
man, I really, really enjoyed was that scene with him and John Walker when he kind of confronts
Yeah.
John
Yeah.
when he had him tied up, just about like
In their
the
dialogue.
legacy of Cap and everything.
Right.
That was such a cool conversation, man.
It was.
Because Bucky's in the middle of that Cap and Falcon, now Captain
Right.
America, and
Imagine-
John Walker group.
Imagine if John Walker gave him his shield to use in the movie, and for the most of the movie he had a shield. How cool would that be?
that would've been
Bucky to have a
so
shield.
cool.
It'd been sick.
That'd been so cool.
I don't know. I
Dude,
would've
I'm
loved that.
seeing all these theories for like Doomsday that's gonna be like an evil Cap, and that Bucky's gonna lead like John Walker and like and Sam
Falcon
Wilson
Sam,
against him, or
and they're all
something.
gonna be. That would be
Yeah,
kind of
that'd
crazy
be
against Chris
cool.
Evans, Hydra
Against-
Cap.
yeah, Hydra
That'd
Cap.
be kind of crazy.
That would be cool.
John Walker's gonna get pumped,
Bro.
he gonna get
Bro,
done.
you see that man jump like 50
Did
feet
he
in the air?
did? Never
Oh
mind.
my
You're right. Dude,
gosh,
that was crazy.
dude. I was like, you're telling me Bucky could do this?
No.
Maybe the serum is
No.
The serum is
He
just
had-
that much better.
He had a different serum that was better, like an improved serum.
Bro, that's
why he punched through a wall in one hit and then jumped like a Hulk.
I know. I was like, are you
Sick.
kidding me,
Yeah,
bro?
it was awesome.
This is a Hulk here.
Flipping Hulk. All right, the next character we will talk about is the comedic relief of this movie, David Harbour, Red Guardian. Dude,
Man,
what
he was
can we
funny.
say?
He was funny.
I loved him.
Yeah.
He was the heart and soul of the Thunderbolts. So funny.
Yeah.
David Harbour did such a great job with that comedy aspect, and also did a great job being serious when he needed to.
Yeah.
But so funny when he's in there fighting, he's ripping apart the stuffed animal. That was so funny. And just everything, like he's riding that limo, hadn't slept in days. He's like, I will sleep when I'm dead. It was awesome. Just so many, just all the comedy. He's definitely the heart of that. And He just reminds me of like that. Just like he was called Santa. He reminded me of Santa, you know, and he played Santa.
He's that really embarrassing uncle.
Yes,
you know that
he's the favorite.
You don't want to tell your friends about, but like when he shows up to the parties,
you know it's about to be a party.
Like you know it's about to be a party.
Exactly.
You know, no, he did an absolutely phenomenal job. And like we said earlier, kind of with Florence Pugh, like, you know, he also does a really good job kind of, you know, dealing with his loneliness. And we get to see it through his lens, through his perspective, and seeing how he kind of deals with it by being useful and bringing this team together, right? By helping out his daughter.
He craves that attention.
He craves that attention. He craves that, like, that oneness in that team.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
You have the two different, like, perspectives when it comes to Yelena and Red Guardian. Yelena is kind of one of leading the life behind but kind of step into the spotlight and actually be a hero.
Yeah.
Whereas he's already in like in the shadows. Now he's wanting to come on top too, but he's also like willing to fight and do different things and stuff. And you know, even Valentino doesn't even know who he is, but still, he was a great addition to this movie. Surprisingly, you know, I mean, he was a great part of the Thunderbolts. He was just so funny. He's just, again, he's that one character that's in several instances where he's that comedy relief. He's that fun loving guy, but he's also the heart. You know, he brings, like Yelena. If it wasn't for Red Guardian, you know, where would she be? You know, because that's her father in her eyes, even though not really. In her eyes, he was. And the conversation that they had, I have to point out, was so amazing. Like that conversation in the fight where he was just talking to her and he said, I should have been there when I wasn't, and all this, and just bringing it down and saying that you were and it was just real. She was really emotional, and it was just a really great scene between the two characters. And Red Guardian was awesome.
He did a phenomenal job. You know, I don't think it mattered what he said. Just the way he said everything was hilarious.
So funny.
You know, I think he could turn like a "Hey, how you doing?" into like the most funny thing in the world.
Literally.
Like I saw someone on Twitter, they're like, it wasn't always what he said, but how he said it. He sold it. He sold it so well.
Sold it every single time. Yeah, every line. It makes me want to watch Black Widow again because I didn't remember him being that funny in Black Widow.
I don't think he is.
But
you know, and I think it suits here. It kind of reminds you of that that very beginning of Marvel kind of comedy.
Yeah,
it
does.
The kind that actually made you laugh.
What other like Marvel character can I compare him to? Because he may be like the funniest. I can't even think of anybody funnier.
Like when it comes to a team, like I guess Drax has a similar role.
I think Red Guardian's funnier.
He is. It's not necessarily the same.
Drax is just stupid.
Exactly.
That's all they do. Red Guardian's just funny. Korg, I guess, might be another option. Korg's funny. Who else might be as funny as him? I don't know.
Korg, Drax,
and Red Guardian.
DC wise, who's that guy with Peacemaker? Shoot, that
King
dude's
Shark?
really funny. No, it's like best friend.
Vigilante. Vigilante's funny.
He's funny, but as far as
but he's
Marvel,
stupid. But like funny, but not being like completely.
stupid. I
don't know. But he was a great comedic character.
He was very good.
Like and his comedy again wasn't forced comedy. It was just genuinely funny.
He killed it,
which I loved. All right, let's talk about now a standout of this movie. Surprisingly, John Walker, U.S. agent.
I'm not gonna lie, Michael. He might have been my favorite part about this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Tell me more about that.
Him and Bucky, man. They're just... it's just... Man, I'm getting goosebumps.
Such a jerk.
Yeah, dude, such a jerk, right? And,
such a jerk.
And we're talking, how about we like the writing and all this character development. What we see from John Walker, he was a soldier, someone who was always used to working as a team, who was thrust into the spotlight by the government. Right, by the government. So he's forced to live up to these huge expectations. He has, kind of Bucky and Sam Wilson looking down on him. He has all this pressure, right? He's been put in an awkward spot by the government. And then in the show, right, we see him murder a terrorist. So then his life spirals. You see him fail as a father. We see him fail as a dad. Like, dude, everything is going wrong for him. He's in the pits. And then that's where, he gets to where he is. So it was kind of cool, throughout the movie. Slowly he goes from being that reckless soldier, which he never did well in, then as he became to integrate and became part of the team, he did better and better. Because think about it, right? He was a soldier. He was always used to working together. So in the beginning, he's doing his things his way. It's not working. His life is falling apart.
Yeah.
But kind of once he submits and Yelena takes control over the team, everything comes together.
Absolutely.
So watching him go from that hated jerk, and obviously he's
still a jerk.
He's still the butthole in the movie, but as the movie goes along, you start to like him better and better and better.
Because he was he was such a hateable character that you liked him. You know, does
Bro,
that make
he
sense?
was getting real life death threats. Wyatt Russell was from the show.
From, Captain America.
Yeah,
Falcon
you
Winter
know,
Soldier.
because obviously people love Chris Evans, but Wyatt killed his role so good.
Killed it.
That people were like death threats, and
That's
now they're
ridiculous
turning on it.
that, because if that's telling me he did his job. You know?
Exactly, yeah.
And to say it was just such weird, because like there was moments like in the beginning of the movie, like when they were in the vault, that everybody was gasping at how much of a jerk he was. Do you remember that?
I know, yeah.
People were like, what?
I know.
Like he was such a jerk.
Yeah.
But you realize why. You
You
know?
realize why, and you see
realize
where
why.
he's coming from,
Right.
and seeing him kind of emerge from that, and kind of become something of a better person was really cool.
It was really cool.
Becoming
And
part of
see
the
him
team was awesome.
becoming an Avenger essentially. So that's it's really cool. You
It
know,
was
kind of
so
what
cool.
he wanted initially. But this is another character similar to like a Punisher, not afraid to do what it gets. He'll kill if he has to. It's
Exactly.
just, Also something
like
that
I said, he is a soldier. You know, he's not used to being the face
a symbol,
of something.
right.
A symbol. Yeah.
He's not used to be a symbol. He's an agent.
He's an agent,
and he's going to do what he has to do. And like I said, he was absolutely a standout in this movie. He just was. And he was such a jerk. It was funny, you know, so many times too.
Yeah.
But he was awesome in this movie, you know, and the way he treated the others, it was just so like, dang, dude. No
one thing I thought was really cool is kind of how they incorporated kind of some of his military training, like when they start coming after them in the Vault of Soldiers.
Yeah.
Like he's really careful about telling them, like, you know, where the power source is or how long it's going to take for the soldiers to come through the door and just stuff like that. Like there's just so many like little stuff that they pay attention to
really
that
cool.
he would know because of his military background.
Right.
And I also really liked kind of first of all, his chemistry with Ghost was like
really
insanely good.
It
dude.
was really good.
It was. I was not expecting
all
it,
their
but-
characters' chemistry was great.
but
Great.
him
chemistry.
and Ghost were great, and then him and Sentry are really good too. One thing I didn't realize
Such a jerk to him.
when I was watching, yeah, exactly, and that's the point. One thing that I didn't realize when I was watching the movie, but I saw later online was like he kind of in the beginning kind of represented Sentry's abusive father. Like kind of throughout the first 2 quarters of the movie, he calls Bob Bobby the whole time, and kind of Sentry kind of tunes him out. If you notice, kind of most of the time when he calls him Bobby. Later in the flashback scene in the Void, we see Bob's abusive father call him Bobby, and so then like the wheels start to turn with John. So eventually, when they beat up Bob's father, it's John is the one who punches him.
See,
so that's him kind of overcoming.
See,
Like
that's
the
really
man
good
he
writing.
is.
That's really
such
good
writing.
That's really good writing. Yeah.
So like he's visualizing that, and then at the end by beating the father up, like he's become better than that.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think like he's one of my favorites. I can't lie. He was really good.
He was great.
He's
was great.
Horrible but somewhat good character that people love now.
Yeah, exactly. Good character, just not a good person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Our next character, Ghost, played by Hannah John Kamen, and again another surprise.
She was phenomenal. Yeah.
Welcome surprise. This was like, you remember Ant-Man and the Wasp, and you're like, Leaves.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought that you would love Ghost?
Bro, it shows it like what good writing really means.
Exactly.
Like when you watch that movie, you never would have been like, I hope I see you again.
No, not at all.
Should be a good part of a team.
Exactly. I was like, out of all the villains that you choose to keep alive, you choose Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. And now I'm like,
so
I get
cool,
it.
dude.
I get it. She was great. And like her having more control of her powers now, also super cool.
Yeah.
Her suit was awesome. So much better than Ant-Man
It was
and the Wasp
fire.
suit.
Yeah.
And she just, again, had great chemistry with the characters, not afraid to do what's to be done, and just a great addition to the team because she's the only one in the team that besides super soldiers that has like legitimate powers, which is cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. They do something really important with their character in the first 20, 30 minutes. Like she's the one that saves them first, right?
Yeah,
when they're
absolutely.
all still strangers, like she's the one that comes back and save them. She's the one that does this. So
Right. Even though she didn't have to.
It was clear from the beginning, like she had that good heart, and she kind of set the tone for the rest of the team to follow and to look out for each other.
Absolutely.
So no, dude, she was so good. Like we said earlier, like her chemistry with John was great with the other characters. But no, watching it, I'm like, dude, I want to see more of her.
I agree.
This is a cool character.
I wanted to see more of her. And originally, when I was saying going into this movie, I can't believe she's in it. Like, whatever. I don't care about her character.
Yeah.
Here, I actually cared about it. So it was really, really good addition.
Yeah.
All right. The next character introduced in this movie for the first time to the MCU being Bob. Otherwise known as Sentry and otherwise known as The Void.
The Void.
awesome.
Playing
character.
3 different characters.
Three
dude.
different characters awesomely.
It's so cool.
He
So
was
cool.
one of the best parts of this movie.
He was, yeah.
Like, him as a villain was so good. Like, he's one of the
Terrifying.
best villains we've had, I feel like, in a long time.
That's one of the
Marvel.
best villain designs too.
Oh, yeah.
Just a shadow with the yellow eyes.
Of course, he's not Homelander villain bad,
Yeah.
but like he reminded you of that kind of thing. Like he could have. That's what he could have been.
Yeah.
If you kept pushing him like they were, when it comes to Sentry. But like I'm trying to think in recent years what another villain comparatively would have been as good as he was.
I don't know.
As the Void.
He was terrifying.
He was terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, such a good villain. As Bob in the beginning, like, is him, he's just there, and Yelena being such a friend to him, and him remembering that, and just remembering them having good chemistry at the beginning of the movie. And then Valentina slowly manipulating him to think, hey, no, you can be this symbol, you can be this great thing.
I can turn into something good.
Exactly. I can make you good when he has a horrible past of meth addiction, abuse of his family,
mental
and
issues,
like he's always had these two like personalities, I think, in his life is what they were saying, schizophrenic maybe or something like that.
Yeah,
but then he becomes Sentry, and I must say he looks so good as Sentry.
Looked really good,
so good, so comics accurate.
Yeah,
it was incredible. And unfortunately, I was so sad. We only got one Sentry scene in the entire movie, which was disappointing. However, that one scene was one of my favorite scenes in the movie when they're all like they did not like dull him down. They did not, if anything, which I'm so glad that they didn't. He was like all powerful. Like, and the thing I like about Sentry and how they did him is he's like Superman, only if he had the Force.
Exactly.
Imagine.
I know.
Like, imagine.
He was so cool.
So
dude.
cool. Like,
so
throwing
powerful.
around people.
Who
They
was
couldn't
stopping
touch him.
Nobody.
They couldn't touch him at all. They kept fighting him, but there was no shot. They didn't dull it down.
They just run out in an elevator
win.
together.
Yep.
I saw some tweet that said, dude, if that was Chris Evans, Captain America leading that fight, everybody would have been dead.
Yeah.
He would have not stopped.
I'm not stopping. Yep.
Dude, he was so good. And just like those subtle differences in acting, like from Bob to Sentry,
Lewis
it's
Pullman.
kind of the same, but he's a little more confident now.
Yeah.
But he's still a good guy. He's not willing to kill and not willing to cross these boundaries. Right. But they're just a tiny shift in that acting, and it was really cool.
And I do like how, like, this is the first movie in a while that they haven't really killed off their villain that kept him, which was awesome. But also how, like, the character development that he had, because he goes from being this, horrible mental health issues, horrible childhood, this, that, or the other, to becoming Sentry with a mindset of I'm the best, I'm this, I'm going to be the best, then becoming the Void and just being pure evil, and then coming back and becoming a new Avenger, which was super cool.
Yeah,
and
that's
they
a
did
lot
it all
of
in one movie.
Yeah.
And they did a great job executing it. Now, they didn't say the Void was completely gone. The Void could return, which is also really cool.
Yeah.
But
it's only, Void only returns if Sentry returns,
Right.
Because if it's just Bob, right, the
Bob's
Void's
good.
not going to come out.
No.
I guess the question is like whether Sentry can control that.
I know, is
which
learning to control that.
I'm kind of confused between that. So it's like it's Bob, but then like once I don't understand the mental shift, from to Sentry, and then
I don't think there is
also to
really
Void,
much of a
or-
mental shift to Sentry. He just, when he's using that abilities, the
when
Void
he's
kind of takes
like
over.
it's possible that the darkness takes over.
Right.
Okay, so
But-
I obviously I believe that he'll learn through time and
and as get better, because like who's beating Sentry?
nobody. We're thinking like he does Captain Marvel
easily.
He'd beat Thor.
Yeah, easily. I mean, the only character that might come to toe would be Scarlet Witch. I mean, that's the only other one.
And if he lands just one good punch on her,
or if he catches her off guard.
He's pretty much he's indestructible with no weaknesses.
No, not that we know of yet.
Which is like, how do you
except for the
develop
kill
a serum
switch,
like that?
Yeah,
except for the kill switch,
kill
which
switch.
Valentina just happens to have.
Of course.
Like Doom goes to find
He
Valentina.
goes to find Valentina. Anyway, but the only I should wait to the cons for that. But Sentry was he was awesome. I think that they did such a good job with him as a villain, such a good job with him as a character.
Yeah,
every single part. Now let's talk specifically more about the Void.
Okay.
Scary, dude.
Terrifying.
His
character. Dialogue was so good.
So good. Like you could hear like the deeper voice.
The deeper voice.
Like you could just see his
rumbling.
eyes. All you could see, and then the smile every once in a while. It's like that
bright
spooky
teeth.
aspect. Yes.
Yeah.
And
the Void was just kind of like all that trauma and all that abuse personified.
Right.
Telling him he wasn't good enough and that no one
locking
cared for
him down,
him.
locking him in that room.
That's so cool, man. How they have that person as a visual representation for those
and I do
mental
like
struggles.
because it's like this one person in this void, which makes me think of is like, did the void, was it a creation? I guess what it must have been is like his powers he got in the lab.
Yeah.
Maybe he was schizophrenic before
and
he had the void already, but he developed like when he got his powers, that's how the void became what it is.
Well, think about it. You know, like I think they mentioned in the movie, like what happens when you give a super serum to a person who's mentally unstable. Think about, you know, sorry, not Chris Evans. What's his face? Rogers. You know, they gave the serum to this kid, a good kid who was skinny, who wanted to serve his country, right?
Right.
You know, he was solid. He was a good dude. Switch that with the guy, you know, whose abusive past has kind of led him to a life of drugs and stuff. Right. Give that dude a more powerful serum, and it amplifies way farther than even what Steve Rogers' serum did.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, like, say you had given Steve Rogers the other serum, like he just would have been pure good Sentry.
I do also think it's really interesting too, because even at the beginning of the movie in the vault sequence, both John Walker and Yelena experienced the void without the void being there, which was interesting just by his touch. Which it just, I don't know, that was
because he didn't even realize
he didn't realize that he don't have like the ability to turn it off yet.
So the void was just there. But it also makes me realize, I guess the Sentry was there too, because say those fires had gone off, like obviously Bob would have been completely fine.
Right.
You know, so while the power was still there, just that darker presence was still lingering
there as well.
him,
and I think it was really cool because essentially what the void becomes is just a manifestation of mental illness.
That's exactly what it is. And they did a great job.
Whenever he's up there, like in New York skyline, everybody's getting drawn into the void. They enter their own mental, like whatever going on, their mental psyche.
They're bad boxes.
Right, exactly.
They're terrible memories.
The stuff that they put down in the void deep down, which is really a really cool exploration into mental health and that whole aspect in the storyline.
That is just genius on Marvel's part.
Great writing, absolutely.
Going into a movie like this, you would never assume that it would be about something like this.
No, I did not think it would be this whole mental psyche final battle, kind of like Doctor Strange-ish almost.
Yeah.
Whereas I was thinking a big, huge sequence. But at the same time, if you had a big, huge fight sequence, they wouldn't have stood a chance. So this this leads into how they could beat him, which was really neat in that regard. So shout out to Sentry, Bob the Void.
Yeah, Lewis Pullman, great.
Yeah, Lewis Pullman killed it.
Great job.
Bob in 2 universes, super cool. Top Gun Maverick in now Marvel, which is awesome.
That's awesome.
All right, now let's talk about Valentina, played by Dreyfus from Seinfeld,
something like that.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
So
Valentina,
she's now the head of CIA.
She was always the head of CIA.
She's always been the head of CIA. Dude, that courtroom scene was really funny. She's like, I have nothing to do with this. These claims are absurd, and they would come up empty. And the next, she's like, get rid of everything. Torch it.
That was so funny.
They're coming after us.
That was so funny. But to me personally, I feel when it comes to Valentina, I feel like I'm not trying to be mean. The actress did a great job playing her, but she felt like the Kmart or Walmart version of Amanda Waller or of Nick Fury. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Like not the same when it comes to like Amanda Waller.
She was trying to manipulate like Chancellor Palpatine, and it just was not hitting the same. No, Michael, I'm honestly with you. I have some of this stuff in my cons too, but I don't know if I can blame it on writing almost, because I feel like writing was great for almost everybody else.
I don't think it was writing. I just think it was her character.
I wasn't sold on this performance. Yeah. You know, like it just didn't like attract
It was
me.
almost like she's a comedian, so it almost like she was playing as if it's a comedy when this was a comedic role.
That's a good explanation. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, because she's extremely dangerous, you know, and they're putting in their situations where she's controlling the most powerful person in the world.
Right.
But yeah, like she's cracking these jokes and stuff. Like she just seemed unserious kind of to me in a sense.
And also, one thing I also did not like is she felt like one of the most expendable aspects of this movie, and they didn't take advantage of it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like at one point, as Avengers Doomsday took a lot of the stakes away from the movie anyway. But when it comes to her, I feel like she was a character they could have easily killed off. They could have had Sentry of the Void kill off, but they neglected to. Yeah. Which I'm like, I just feel like, I know what we mentioned that may have been the point of no return for Sentry, but I just feel like that would have been a incredible scene.
Yeah.
to really push his villainy or something. But even
I
though
know.
he becomes a hero, though, I guess that would take
So
away.
it
But
would have taken away from Century and his
But I just
upbringing.
feel like out of any character in this movie, she was definitely expendable, and she should have met her demise in some capacity.
Like I said, I didn't care for her. I still don't. I've never loved the character of Valentina, but just this portrayal in this movie, it just kind of fell off.
Right.
To me, and like you said, I can't necessarily put my finger on it.
I know. And the fact that they made her like almost one of the main villain almost, it was just I didn't like that.
Yeah,
I didn't like it. And I also didn't like out of all the people to vie Avengers Tower, it was her either. I didn't like that.
Like that doesn't raise red flags.
No,
like,
I know.
The CIA head is just like, I want that
giant
building.
tower. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But anyway, she was more one of the lowlights for me for this movie. All right, now let's talk about an interesting addition to this movie: Valentina's assistant, Mel.
Yes. Spoilers. They're saying she becomes Songbird,
Which I wouldn't be mad at because in the comic books, Songbird's a huge member and part of the Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
So for her to be Songbird, I wouldn't be necessarily mad at. I don't know. What is Songbird's name in the comics?
I don't know.
Songbird.
What was her name in the movie? Mel?
Mel.
Okay.
Melissa Gold. So Mel could absolutely be Songbird.
Bro, I saw some weird people online shipping like her and Bucky. I was like, bro, what?
How old is she?
What they talk about in the movie. He was but no, man, I think she did a very good job. I think, they kind of wrote her as comic relief too, but
yeah.
I will say some of the writing felt a little weak because kind of the movie depended upon her. You know what I'm saying? If you're as evil as Valentina, right, and you're as secure and tight as well as CIA top level agent could be, like, you would make sure that nothing ever got out, right? You'd make sure that everything was sealed away.
Right.
It just seemed weird to me that Valentina was willing to torch anybody and everybody so nothing would come out. But yet she had a personal assistant
who was going to betray
who was like
her,
a teenager.
and
She had her schedule everything.
But
in the movie?
Yeah.
Bro, no, she a teenager, bro.
In real life, though, she's 30.
She ain't no way, bro.
Yeah.
Maybe in the movie she's like a good 22.
I doubt it. Well, because she said she was a teenager when where she was in high school when the attack in New York originally happened.
She looks so young.
She does look
that
young,
is
but no,
crazy.
She's 30, yeah.
It's just weird to me, bro. Maybe that's part of the reason Valentina didn't sell me, because I'm like, a person this evil would have left no loose ends.
No.
I was fully expecting Mel to die the
Yes.
entire movie. She's killing off everybody to protect her secrets, but not Mel. So, first of all, I felt like the writing was a little weak with her and Bucky. It's like, okay, the movie can only move on once predictably her assistant turns on her and tells Bucky.
Right.
I
See, I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Do you feel the same way?
I feel the same way. I didn't mind her character. I liked her.
I think she did a good job.
I think she did a good job. I liked
saw
her as a character. And if she becomes Songbird, I'm definitely something I'm not mad at.
yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I feel like that, she could have been a point of stakes as well for this movie that it didn't have. And the whole thing with her betraying Valentina and Valentina still just being like, whatever, just do what I ask. It just didn't fit with the character.
I know.
And what the route that they were going towards either. So I don't know. But all right, let's talk about our character that was really interesting and met their end really early in this movie, Taskmaster.
So, I'm seeing a lot of different stuff about this whole situation.
There was something behind the scenes.
I read
sure.
originally Taskmaster was supposed to be an integral part of this movie.
Yeah.
And that Taskmaster was supposed to develop like a really cool and close relationship with Ghost, right? And that they're going to be super tight. Apparently, they were going to have this running joke with memory loss where Taskmaster was going to like have her memory reset like every 15 or 10 minutes throughout the movie and try to kill John Walker again. Because that was the original task, was to kill John Walker. So that was apparently in the first draft of the movie, that was like a running gag. It was just her trying to kill John Walker like every 10 minutes. Time. They're like, no, you're on the team. So it's to me, it seems like they had written for her to have an integral part in this movie.
Right.
Kevin Feige steps in and wants to show the fans that he hears what they're saying and that he's a part of this creative overhaul and that now he wants to set the slate clean. So first of all, I feel bad for an actress.
I do. I do. A lot of things I also was hearing is a big reason that Marvel has been struggling lately is because that Disney executives have been stepping in more than Kevin Feige, and Kevin Feige hasn't as much say.
That never goes well ever, bro. Because they have no idea what they're talking about.
You see what
the
Feige
fans
did
want.
originally. Give it back, and so to give that gift to the fans, I have mixed feelings about that because I think I would have given Taskmaster a chance.
I know. I was ready to too. I love the design.
I love the design. I thought it was cool. I agree. And I was willing to give it a chance, even though I didn't. I hated how they did it Black Widow. They may have made it better in this movie and just not give her any lines or anything like that, and just had her continuously be mute, kind of like a Snake Eyes kind of character, something like that. I thought would have been cool, and worked really well.
For sure.
But to kill her off so quickly, also I feel like took away some stakes because of all the characters. You could have killed her off in a third act sequence.
Exactly.
If you wanted a character to kill her off, why kill her in the first act? 20 minutes in.
I really do. I think it's a statement, Michael.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that probably that actress had filmed like
a lot more scenes
all the way through the end of the movie.
Right. But
I bet there's a lot of footage
right
out
there. They reshot and eliminated her and digitally removed her.
I think, like, obviously, I don't know anybody, but I think that's Kevin Feige telling us that he listens to it. And obviously, I do feel bad because I wanted to see, because I feel like these writers are doing a really good job, redemption wise.
Right.
But no, I think that's just them saying, we hear what you're saying, we'll restart.
Sure.
But it just felt weird, man.
It really felt weird. But anyway, oh well. See you, Taskmaster.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
All right, let's get into our pros now. I'll start us off with the pros.
All right.
So one huge element I thought is this movie was very visually pleasing. I think this was a huge pro because in Marvel recent years, I'm trying to think what the last visually pleasing Marvel movie was.
Eternals.
Well, yeah, that's where I'm going is Eternals. Even though Eternals has its issues, which I love it more than most.
I do too.
Eternals is very visually pleasing and very different. And I think, Wakanda Forever maybe.
Wakanda Forever has great visuals.
Wakanda Forever had great visuals. So
those underwater scenes.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
But other than that, Guardians of the Galaxy had a few good visuals in 3, but it was a great experience. It felt like almost DC flipping Snyder level. Like
there's a lot more gray, a lot more black
for Marvel,
a lot of gray for Marvel,
and it was really, really great. And I know they pulled in a lot of A24 people doing a lot of the visual aspects, which was really there. And also, we forgot to mention the new Marvel intro. That was epic.
That might be my favorite Marvel
I
intro
agree.
yet.
It was great.
They honestly, bro, they should do that for every film.
Yeah,
the
and they
comic
pulled,
strips.
Comics of the Thunderbolt characters.
I know.
Awesome.
You guys see Bucky and Ghost and all these people in the comics.
Sentry,
that was cool.
It was awesome. Anyway, just a very visually enhancing, pleasing movie that I was like, it's one of those movies that I wasn't taken out of. Like I felt like I was immersed in it compared to like so much CGI and green screens. This movie, there was no green screens, which I super appreciated.
Yeah, man. That was epic, man. And I'm with you there. That kind of plays into one of my pros, which is, the cinematography. It was beautiful. Yeah. I think they set the tone really early with the scene. It's Yelena kind of talking, and she's sitting on the building, right? One of the tallest buildings in the world.
Yeah.
Which she did, obviously she was in the harness, but she wanted to do that stunt for herself. So we got a mini Tom Cruise on our hands. Seeing the explosion on that building, which they actually did, just like their willingness to take risks. But no, just very early on, man, they had some awesome shots, some really good frames, and they kind of continued that throughout the entire movie. So that really felt like a breath of fresh air. Like you said, like in addition to like, it never felt like you were just staring at a green screen. Like it was clear that these people were.
I don't think there was a green screen in this movie at all.
They're filming on the streets. They're well, I don't know, maybe the vault. I don't know, but
I don't think there was.
Yeah, that's real cool, man. That's real cool.
All right, my next pro is the character development and chemistry. I feel like that was such a bright point in this movie. All of the characters fit together really surprisingly well. I didn't think that they would when they first revealed the Thunderbolts, but they did. Yelena, Bucky, Red Guardian, John Walker, Ghost, all had incredible chemistry that fit together really well. And that chemistry goes into development. Specifically, the best character development, I think, was Yelena and John Walker. I feel like those two had the best character development. You can see that functioning throughout the entirety of the movie, whereas Bucky kind of didn't really have development because he's kind of at a point where he's already had all his development.
Yeah, he's already
kind of there, but he adds great to the chemistry because he knows their experiences and he sees that development, which is really, really well executed. So that was another pro I had.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that. Just I had that as a pro too. The team up, the riding with that team of Misfit and Rejects was really, really cool. Like you said, we've already seen Bucky's trauma in his past, but getting to see the other people's and, you know, how they all kind of fit together as pieces of a puzzle, how they kind of put themselves aside for the greater good and eventually becoming that team when they never planned on it. Man, it was really cool and inspiring. It was emotional. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I did shed a number of tears. I was not expecting that. So I was very encouraged by the writing there.
I agree. All right, the next pro I have is the mental health aspect of this story. We already talked about that throughout the characters, but this is the first Marvel movie, I think, at all to explore such in-depth mental health. Correct me if I'm wrong. Well,
no, you're right.
Moon Knight was a show that worked on it, but I think as a movie, this was the first really big entry into the idea of mental health, and I think it was just such a cool concept. They did such a good job showing mental health when it comes to loneliness, when it comes to depression, and you know, it was such a good job. And then the way they did it and the executing it when it comes to using the void as that means to an end,
as that persona,
right? Which was really, really cool exploration into that storyline of these characters and fit really well with the development and also the Thunderbolts as a whole, because if you're going to introduce a team of anti-heroes that have issues from the childhood, of course you're going to have mental health problems.
Exactly.
And that was really well done, I think.
Yeah, and I'm with you too. You know, that's one of my pros too, just how well they handled mental health, and I've especially in the third act. I thought that third act was amazing, and like, you know, we brushed on it before, but you know, we're seeing inside Elena's mind, and as she's trying to go and she's trying to rescue Sentry and save the city, you know, we get to see her, you know, fight her own demons, see the struggles that, you know, that she's gone through the death of her loved ones, the death of her, you know, the little girl that she knew, the death of her sister, you know, just her dealing with all that was really, really cool to see. And like you said, we see all the other people bust in, you know, and obviously they've just run through their own rooms of their own boxes of just terrible trauma.
Right.
So seeing everyone kind of come together, you know, and stop, you know, Sentry from, you know, essentially becoming just like them, right? By killing this other persona, the Void. Man, that was so cool to see. So cool. Just like you said, you know, going into this, we kind of expected just like a shoot 'em up, you know, bang bang kind of, you know, big sequence.
But that wasn't what it was. Yeah.
I mean, we got to see Bucky punch a chicken in the face, which was Bob. I forgot.
Yeah.
But you know, that was him on meth. So watch. That was also cool.
Yeah, that
but
was.
Man, dude, those visuals are crazy. You know, as she's falling through the mirrors and the camera.
Yes.
Man, that was A24 through and through.
Absolutely.
But no,
absolutely.
Great job in that third act there. Yeah. That was one of my biggest pros.
Yeah, and my last pro is the same thing. Is the third act. You know, it's rare. It's really rare where out of the three acts, the third act is my favorite. And in this movie, the third act was my favorite. The third act was so good. The whole end mind void story was so cool because, again, everybody going into this movie is thinking we're going to get this huge battle sequence fight, which I did kind of miss. I would have liked to have seen something like that. But instead, we got them. What that was for the third act was them in the streets helping random people with the objects. Yeah. And that was awesome because they had all, this was one of my favorite parts as well. You know, the Sentry scene and this scene, I think, were my top two favorite scenes. Was when they all disbanded. They were all mad at each other. They could not face Sentry. And the next thing you know, Yelena and Red Guardian go and rescue a child, right? Out of this bus. And then it scoots over to Scott and Ghost is teleporting or whatever she does and phasing somebody out, and then John Walker catching a wall and all of them just coming up and pushing that wall back together. Awesome, because typically you see like them all coming together and just fight and punch it, but no, they're all helping people.
They were coordinated as a team,
and they weren't
helping these people,
right? And they weren't necessarily coordinated, but they were like doing it on their own free will, and then they finally came together to help each other.
I know.
I thought that was beautiful writing.
I mean, I like
they gave me
seeing
chills.
like these now rejects have become heroes,
Right, and it was so good
And
that
they're
the
saving
way
the
they
people
did
in
it.
New York.
And it was just they were just doing it out of the kindness of their hearts because they'd already disbanded. They were just helping because they knew they needed to.
Yeah, and it comes to the point where they all jump behind that huge,
Yes.
that huge piece of debris. Which I'm like, I just saw John Walker punch a hole in the concrete wall. I know he could take this by himself.
Yeah, but no,
No, that was cool.
that was a pretty heavy thing. But
Yeah,
it was just.
I watched this man jump 100 feet.
Yeah, it was just an awesome scene. So that was my last pro.
No, man, that was super, super cool. My last pro, which is really sneaky, but it is a musical score. Dude,
I didn't catch that.
Bro, it's very sneaky, but
very
there's
subtle.
a lot of
Very
hidden
subtle.
parallels with that and then the Avengers themes, especially at the end when they're saving
Yeah.
people and it's getting triumphant. It's like essentially like a rewriting of the like Avengers theme.
Yeah,
So anyway, I need to go back and rewatch it.
I do
But
need
it
to
had a
rewatch
really,
it.
really good score that was slept on just because
Okay.
like visually and everything, it was so good. Like I wasn't always paying attention to the music, but
Yeah.
it had a really solid score. So
Okay.
anyway, that was all of my pros I had.
you want to lead us with the cons?
I will lead us off with the cons. My first con, and we talked about this right after the movie. My biggest con with this movie is I feel like it's very campy. I feel like the movie just kind of takes place in like 3 general locations.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like small rooms and stuff, and there's a lot of dialogue that happens, but it just feels like it moves extremely slow.
Yeah.
And that's what I
Yeah.
mean by campy.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I agree. That was also another one of my cons is slow specifically second act, but it was a slow. Yeah, it was very slow when it comes to the desert sequences and the vault was dragged
vault
out.
took so
It was
forever.
very dragged out.
It's almost an hour there.
Yeah, and it was just there was a lot of different scenes that was just a slow build up, slow sequences that were just a lot of dialogue, lots of conversations, lots of this, which I wasn't necessarily mad at. It was never like boring.
Exactly.
It just felt like we needed more in certain sequences than we did.
I know.
Because if you look at it, and this is another con I had is not only slow second acts, but lack of action sequences. I feel like the only action sequences we had was the vault when they escaped, the whole car scene with Bucky, and then the final Sentry thing.
Yeah.
That was it.
It's a team of super soldiers and assassins.
Right.
You want to see just
You
cool
want to see
stunts.
some shooting,
You see
point
cool
and
shooting.
shooting.
Exactly.
And we
Yeah.
didn't get a whole ton of that, which I was
No,
really
we
kind of
didn't.
let down by a little bit. And even though like it doesn't make sense to see them all fighting Sentry, and we did get to see it, it was awesome. But I would have liked to have seen them fight more than soldiers, like as a team, or like
I
at
know.
the end, like Valentina sending some soldiers in before Sentry or something, like before she unveiled Sentry.
The vault scene when they're coming through
See,
at night.
that
and
was
it's John Walker
awesome.
fighting, or the very beginning where it's Yelena fighting in the shadows against
Yeah.
those guys,
Yeah.
which that represents later what Void would do to the citizens, making them shadows.
Yeah.
because like the camera's filming from the top down, so you're only seeing the shadows of these characters.
was a cool-
which is a
cool
really
sequence.
cool
Yeah.
writing thing.
Yeah,
saw
but I
there.
just feel like the lack of action sequences and the slow pacing of the second act was just a really it was just really a disservice, I feel like, to these characters in this movie. Not to say it took away a lot of things, because the movie was still great and had a lot of great scenes, but I just feel like that slowness to casual viewers, they would get bored. They might be like, huh, this is kind of boring.
Yeah.
More so than I thought it would be. Which is unfortunate. I feel like adding a little bit more sprinkling of action would have been really welcome.
Yeah. And Michael, my next con kind of pairs hand in hand with that one. But this is really weird to say for a Marvel movie. But I feel like there's almost too much dialogue in this film.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's
Not
campy
bad dialogue.
and it's slow. Not bad dialogue, but there's just a surplus of it. Like you said, it's missing a lot of action, a lot of shoot 'em up, bang bang scenes. Like, we love the third act, but like you said, early in the movie or against certain, like they fight the soldiers when they first drive in the building, but it's later made out to be comedic because Valentina's like, you could have just walked in. I just feel like it just feels like 95. Oh, that's a cool. It just feels like 95% of the movie is just like dialogue. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. I mean,
and I'm
it
not
was a lot.
complaining, but I just feel like it kind of muddied up the flow of the movie.
I agree. No,
little
I
bit.
mean, it was so much dialogue, especially in certain like scenes when they were like tied up by Bucky, or that they were like in the vault. It was just a lot that did not really fit. Like I feel like the whole sequence of them talking to Bob, like after they escaped the vault, was like 10 minutes long.
I know.
And I was like, doesn't need to be 10 minutes, maybe 2.
Dude. I know.
You know, it was so long, and they were just talking to Bob about different things and a bunch of different stuff. It just felt unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? And
I'm with you.
I agree. I agree with that con. My next con, and this is, again, it's almost like a thing. I love the third act, and I love what they did. But I would have loved a third act final battle. Now we never got a final like action sequence between characters or something like that. Would have been really cool. Maybe after the void sequence, maybe Valentina send a bunch of guards after him or something, and there's just one last like Thunderbolts together fight. I don't know. I just would have liked to have seen some sort of them as a team fighting together, because we never got that in this movie at all.
That's crazy.
So it would have been really cool to see them as a team fighting together. You know, I don't know. That's just, it's a mini con, but it's a con nonetheless.
No, I hear, and I'm with you, man. I don't know how you feel about this one, but my next con is, you know, obviously I recognize like the comedy with Red Guardian is great and beyond. I feel like some of the comedy leading up to the introduction of his character in the movie, a lot of it like kind of forced, and I feel like they kept on beating like a dead horse with it. You know, like once he comes onto the scene, it's funny, you know, but he keeps on doing relatively the same gig. You know, there's not a lot of diversity with it. But kind of up until that, it kind of reverted, in my opinion, at least to some of that Marvel humor that we don't like.
I feel
it
like
wasn't horrible, but
I feel like it wasn't. I mean, I agree. I felt there was some scenes that was like, okay, this is too funny. I don't think it ever was Marvel level, like bad type of funny.
It was never Love and Thunder.
No,
honestly, it was
that
never
movie
there.
was so bad it wasn't funny. But
I still think that it might have been Taika Waititi trying to bomb the film because
I
he was mad at Marvel
because
execs.
Taika Waititi has some good movies.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I really think he could have just tried to do it as bad as he can.
It's very true. But yeah, it's the comedy. I wasn't mad at. I thought Red Guardian's comedy was good. I feel like other characters' comedy where they tried to like John Walker to be funny, or
I know.
Yelena in some sequences. It just was like
It lands really weird.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't hit as much, you know.
And
like some scenes like Cucumber, that was funny. You know,
Cucumber,
Red Guardian, that was funny. But some of the other stuff that they had, I agree, it does feel like a lot of that cheesy.
Especially in the movie that dark, we already have that huge comedic relief.
And that's another thing, and this is my next con I'll go into, is for a movie like this, I would have liked it to have been a touch darker. You know what I mean? I feel like either some deaths, really gruesome deaths, or maybe even some just dark sequences,
especially for being the Thunderbolts.
Right.
The
Marvel
point is that
Suicide Squad.
The point is that I guess, you know, the point is that they're supposed to be expendable, but that's like the kind of the counterpoint to Elaine is like, you're not expendable. You matter.
Right.
But obviously the new Avengers, bro, they can't torch the team unless your name is Taskmaster.
No, but like I feel like not necessarily torching them, but some type of like darker element, like where you see like for instance, that one scene where the Void immensely like gets that little girl. If she would have stayed dead, that would have been dark.
I know.
Like really dark, especially for Marvel.
Yeah.
But they didn't keep that. Not to say I wanted that to happen, but it would have added into the darkness of the movie like a darker feel, darker tone that I feel like would have been a big benefit. That was a con.
Bro, I saw this one clip. Someone was recording that scene, and there's the whole theater gasps, but this one dude just starts laughing really loud at her. They're like, "Who is this sicko, dude?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Who is this guy?"
Yeah.
No, but I'm with you, man. Like, you know, there obviously were stakes, but they could have definitely upped it a lot more. A lot more.
I think so.
Like, ideally, someone like Ghost could have died.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, or something.
Even like hurts me to say, but like we could have seen a Bucky death.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere in there.
And this is not, I want to preface this. This is not a con towards Thunderbolts. This is a con towards Marvel marketing. The Doomsday cast, if they would have waited until after this movie to release it, I genuinely there would have been a lot more stakes. Yeah. I would have thought a character would have died.
Of
like
course,
Bucky, I would have thought he would have died. There was several sequences where I thought he's dead. Yelena, I would have actually thought she died in the Void if they would have not revealed it.
Especially after she was like, you know, kind of wishing for death, you know, in the first part of the movie.
Right.
Which, like, when you let us know that all these characters besides Taskmaster are confirmed to be in this movie, it's like, well, I can figure out what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you, man. For my final con, I have one word: Valentina. We talked about it earlier. She just doesn't land for me. She feels weird, kind of as the main big bad, which is crazy. She's manipulative, but she doesn't feel manipulative. She covers all of her footprints, but she doesn't at the same time. She doesn't come across as like that threatening. So I had a hard time personally taking her serious throughout this movie. So that was my final con, man.
I completely agree. I agree full-heartedly. All right, let's get into our end-credit scenes here really quickly before we rate it out of 10. So the first one was the huge new title reveal being Thunderbolts to New Avengers. And this was crazy. And the other one was just like him on the Wheaties box being like Red Guardian, be like, huh? Yeah. Huh? And that was funny. But that was anyway.
Funny. I could call back.
It was funny. But anyway, the show and the whole end credit was the title card. They're now the New Avengers. That was really cool. That was a neat new way of doing things. I thought they did a really good job in doing that. But anyway, that was the first one.
Yep.
The second end credit scene was crazy. Okay. So this was them, and they're all dressed up in their like new Avenger uniforms, which was really cool. We find out that Sam Wilson's not approving of this line of Avengers, and he's doing his own team, which I think is cool.
It also makes sense from his point of view. Like leaving off the show, like him and Bucky are super tight.
Right.
And as far as he knows, Bucky just goes off, starts a new Avengers team, and hails
include him,
and hails like a new Cap, right? Already, so it's like kind of like
it has John Walker.
He's beefing with him.
Yeah,
so I understand where Sam's coming from.
I agree, and I was also like surprising that they didn't call Sam was like, hey, you should join us or like be a part of this group.
But people forget, like in the comics, you have like the West Coast Avengers,
right? And that's what this is going to lead into.
You have all these different sect, but now obviously in the movies, now we finally getting some of that.
Yeah, so that's going to be cool, is because we are going to see, like, I do feel like Sam Wilson's team that he's going to build is going to be a West Coast Avengers.
Okay.
I think it's going to be like that. And then this new Avengers lineup is going to be like a Dark Avengers, which is really cool, seeing like those different sects, like you said, in the comics that we get, these different sects of Avengers. And that's going to be a big play into Doomsday, as saying these two different or multiple different Avengers teams coming together, then X-Men adding in the Fantastic Four. It's going to be an interesting picture to see.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how it is. It's setting up and saying Sam Wilson's disapproving of that. He's got his own team he's doing, the copyright logo, whatever, funny kind of sequence. They've got their new suits on, and they look really cool. And then they get a report of a interdimensional riff. And the first, they never heard of that, and that obviously is the multiverse.
Yeah.
And we see, and the end credits spoiled this a little bit, but I can't say that. But we see the Fantastic Four ship entering in.
Yeah.
So I think this end credit is great.
Yeah.
I think it's a great end credit scene. I think it's one of the best we've had in a long time, bringing in the Fantastic Four. However, it spoils the entire Fantastic Four movie, in my opinion.
It does.
It spoils it.
Yeah, everyone's saying, that's them coming to Earth after Galactus
destroyed their homeworld. Yep. That's exactly what it is.
Dude, I'm seeing some theories. Some people are like taking it even further and saying like, no, this is said after that. This is like the plane that goes to fight Doom or whatever.
Even afterwards.
They're saying at this point,
take place
the Fantastic Four have already like located on Earth and done their stuff. So saying this is even further, which that would be a good way to subvert expectations, I think.
See, I don't think so, just because of the fact that they said that like the interdimensional stuff, because it literally just came out of the multiverse field. So I don't think that could work.
I know. I have a hard time seeing how it would completely work, but
I would say that I think that scene that we saw in Thunderbolts could be a scene in Doomsday. I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, so I just feel like, again, they should have switched the release dates. Fantastic Four should have came out in May, Thunderbolts in July. And because I do feel like we said, Galactus just destroyed their world. Now they're coming here. And then what? I mean, obviously we don't know the build up to it. We don't know what happens. We don't know how they get there, why they end up in this world or what. But that's just, we can infer that. It's really ridiculous. I mean, I saw some theories saying that's not all of the Fantastic Four. That's just maybe 3 out of the 4, and maybe there's a 4th one on this Earth that they don't know about or whatever. And someone actually dies on that multiverse, but now they're going to bring a new one from this universe into the Fantastic Four. I've seen multiple different theories, but again, I just feel like it spoils a lot of stuff. Yeah. So I don't know.
Dude, I'm with you. I saw a couple cool things about that last end credit scene. Like, first of all, it was directed by the Russo brothers, that last scene, which it was funny because I saw people like, oh, it's so good. And then they're like, Nah, it's the Russos. It sucks. After they found out. And then, like, second of all, apparently they shot that 4 weeks before the film was released. Like, they had to get everyone back together for that, which
Really?
I thought was crazy. Yeah.
That is interesting. So
Which
what was the
was
original
crazy.
plan for an end credit then?
That's what makes me wonder. It makes
Or
me
if there
think,
was one.
was there? So,
Huh.
I don't know. That would have been
Okay.
weird just kind of
Okay.
having just the Red Guardian scene. But
Yeah.
it makes me wonder.
Yeah.
Because apparently, like I said, it was just shot 4 weeks before.
And that's too, is Marvel end credit scenes have been weak sauce lately.
Yeah, the best one was like
Weak.
the Marvels, and no one ever would have.
Yeah, it was the
predicted.
Beast one. That was the best one.
No
that
one would
they've had
ever
in
predicted that was
years.
going to happen.
Yeah, that one was good, and I think that's about it.
Yeah, the Shang-Chi one led nowhere.
Shang-Chi led nowhere, but it was a good one.
Yeah.
But it led absolutely nowhere. I think
was
it
so
was
excited.
supposed to lead to Kang, but then
I know,
but-
everything happened.
I think
The
that's about
Ant-Man
it.
and the Wasp one.
Ant-Man and the Wasp one was not Quantumania,
Yeah,
but Ant-Man and the Wasp was.
that was cool.
But that's before Endgame.
The
We can't
original
count that.
Avengers one.
Yeah, all those. I'm talking about after Endgame.
Of course, yeah, of
End
course.
credits. What was a good one? There's not been.
I can't think
The
of
best end credit of all time though was that Venom Let There Be Carnage end credit, because that was crazy.
Which one was that one again?
Where he went from the multiverse into the MCU, and even though that led to
yeah.
nothing really, and that was just kind of stupid.
Cool.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that
Got us
was
hyped.
awesome.
Anyway, but this was a good end credit scene. I just feel like it should have been switched. The movies. But
Exactly,
anyway.
of course.
All right, now let's rate it 1 through 10 as per usual. Here is the moment. You want to go, or you want me to go first?
I'll go ahead. I had this number coming out of the theater after thinking about it over the weekend. My number hasn't changed.
Okay.
I'm going to go with a solid 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's solid. I absolutely think that's solid. I'm gonna go with a solid 7 out of 10. I just think 7's good.
Wow, that's great. I went higher.
7,
Wow.
you did. I love this movie. Don't get me wrong.
I
And
should
I
have
think
done 7, yeah.
I think it's a great movie, but I think 7 out of 10 is a firm right now.
Yeah.
If I see it again, maybe it'll go up 7.5. But there's one thing I know for a fact is it can't go below a 7.
Yeah, and for me, it can't go above an 8.
Yes,
It
I agree.
falls in between there. I was thinking about 7. I ultimately decided to give it a little more bump just because of like
It has some cool stuff.
the risks it was taking and
Yeah,
how unique
absolutely.
the third act was. Like
Absolutely.
I said, like for a Marvel movie,
Yeah.
you just don't always see stuff like
let's
that.
be fair. 2 years ago, I would have probably given it 8.5. So I've come a long way in my ratings and how I do things with recency bias and whatever.
Yeah, maybe 2 years
But-
ago I would have given it a 6. So
Yeah, so
I've come a long way too.
I think I'm gonna give it a 7 just because I know it can't go below that, but I do
Yeah.
think it could raise in the future.
All right, that's very solid.
Not set in stone. I think I gave it a 3.5 on Letterboxd. So there you
Yeah,
go.
but the crazy thing is, I gave it a 3 on Letterboxd.
See, that's interesting.
So yeah, so
it just depends on
dude,
ratings.
bro,
and rating
Letterboxd,
scales.
that's like the most sacred thing in the world,
it
bro.
is.
I'd take my rankings so I'll go
Yeah.
back and re-rank movies like
I've
I
done
have in
that
a
as well.
dream or
I've done that
something.
as well.
I'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah.
All right, man.
All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for listening to this episode. And as always, if you guys liked it, please let us know by giving us a download and a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. If you guys want early access to all of our episodes and exclusive access to fun episodes and additional movie reviews, feel free to subscribe to our new membership, Heroes HQ. We have a new feature on our episodes where you can send us a text message by following a link at the bottom of our episodes. You can submit your questions for Heroes Q&A there, or just shoot us a DM on Instagram. And then finally, feel free to also check out our YouTube channel and our Instagram at Heroes in the Moment.
And we want to thank y'all for listening. And as always, we love you 3000.